I bring you the death of mind, the pain that makes purgatory feel like the lesser evil. For I am the god of hellfire, and I bring you...
Clean up in aisle 5. That's clean up in aisle 5.
Hello there, fellow adventurers. In June last year, I made a top 10 video of AdventureJam 2018 games for my 500 sub special. Well, I've not quite reached 1,000 subs yet, but I'm ready to get my jam on again. If you didn't already know, the AdventureJam challenges developers to create an adventure game in just 2 weeks. This year there are 56 entries, and just like last time I gave all of them a go, at least the ones that were playable. Given the time constraint, a few didn't get finished in time, such as Cat Oddity, which I'd like to have played based on this screenshot. So here are my top 10 picks for AdventureJam 2019. And just like last time, my friend Potu here is gonna count down for us. Isn't that right, Potu? Potu, count. Number 10. Mon Village est Magique, the Whale of the Infinite Ocean, features 2 young brothers called Seb and Tommy, who set out to look for their magical friend Mumuton who's gone missing. It seems that Mumuton might have entered the magical world of the Infinite Ocean, and to get there the brothers must convince Melissa the Witch to let them in. But first they have to do something for her in return. Of course this means making her one of Grandma's mushroom pies, one of the ingredients for which is, not surprisingly, a mushroom. The pie also requires some meat, so the brothers go up against a fearsome opponent by catching a mouse. Are they really going to make a pie out of mouse meat? Maybe that was the secret ingredient of Mum's meat pie and last year's entry Ramp It Up. Oh, sorry, that was Dead Bodies. Oh, you just gave the ending away. Ah, bollocks, you're right, Potu. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting not to give away so many spoilers. As it turns out, the mouse escapes before we bake the pie, but Grandma saves the day and the brothers are victorious. If you are hoping to visit the Infinite Ocean, however, you're SOL, as Melissa explains that this is as far as the demo version goes, and the developer hasn't finished creating the rest of the game. That's so meta. Number 9. An Eternity Reflecting is a charming story about a girl going to visit her father, who she hasn't seen for many years. From the design of the house, it looks like this is somewhere in Japan. Rather than having freedom of movement, we fade from one position to another, which adds to the whimsical atmosphere. We find an old cassette tape and have to figure out how to rewind it before playing. If you have any experience with this, you'll know that a simple pencil will do the trick. Playing the tape and finding other clues around the house reveal memories of your past, and as the title suggests, we take some time to reflect on eternity. Number 8. Stately Grown is developed by Giddy Plant, whose logo of a plant with nose glasses looks like something out of Zap McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders. It's our first day as a tour guide at Diddling Manor, and our job is to educate visitors on the history of the manor, as well as find 2 dead bodies. Wait, what? The voice acting in this game is excellent, and the humour is very British.
So, Chelsea, she's a fine young woman. Credit to you and your wife.
Touch her and I'll crush your balls into a fine paste.
Right, wasn't really where I was going with that, but moving on.
There are several visitors you can interact with, and they all play a part in solving the puzzles, like putting books in the correct order in the library, or finding the hidden musical notes to play on the piano.
Let's play this piece the Earl wrote.
Ba 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 ba. The manor really comes to life with all the activity going on, and there's a lot of gameplay contained in this one location. It's very challenging, but ultimately most rewarding. Number 7. Old Skies looks quite striking for a jam game, and when I first played it I felt there was something different about it, and the mysterious developer Solomon Gillerny. Well, as it turns out, this is none other than Dave Gilbert of Wadjet Eye Games, and and this was his experiment designing 3D environments with Unity. It also features the voice acting of Sally Beaumont as the main character Fia.
Fia, status report.
Tickety-boo, Nozzo. Aside from this clothing, I stick out like a sore thumb.
The game is quite short, but feels more like the opening of a larger story that goes beyond the confines of this limited area. Speaking of which, I figured out a way to get outside the game world into the great unknown, where you can run forever in the old skies at night. Number 6. Starstruck is another game about the night sky, except this time the stars themselves come to life. That's right, all the characters in this game are constellations, and we play as Boots the herdsman who has a couple of star-studded doggos. Just imagine if this was voice acted.
Woofy woofy, uffy uffy woof, ruffy ruffy, yip yap, yippy yappy yip yap, bark. Thanks for the vote of support. And apologies to any streamers who are reading this out loud to their viewers. Apology accepted. Yeah.
We decide to compete in a contest to win an audience with Princess Andromeda. Trouble is, we're not a stereotypical hero like our pal Hercules, but we can pretend to be either Spartacus, Robin of Locksley, or Prince Ali. Depending on who you choose, there's a lot of alternate dialogue for each character, which is a nice touch, especially in a jam game. Each planet in the solar system has its own qualities that we can interact with in ways no normal human could. For example, we can talk to the Earth, or pick up Uranus. 1781 was actually the year Uranus was discovered by William Herschel, though history doesn't say anything about him kissing it, squeezing it, hugging it, or calling it George. Number 5. In the introduction to My Inner Demon, we find ourselves running through the woods with a crow flying overhead. The crow seems to be guiding us to an apartment building lit by a blue flame, and from the looks of it, what's waiting inside can't be good. The credits list Edwin Tiong as the crow. So does that mean the crow actually talks? Well, not only that, but he also talks in rhyme.
A man with bad luck called John lived here. Hearing his tale will give you a tear.
Our objective here is to search this dead guy's apartment and find an object that represents his soul. Once we do this, it opens the way onwards, which isn't any less horrific.
Damn, another dead body?
We get sucked into the routine of finding dead bodies and collecting their souls to the point where it feels like it's driving us crazy.
So, Dr. Watson, what do we have here?
The whole look and feel of the game is dark and claustrophobic, reminiscent of Silent Hill. There's a twist at the end which I won't reveal, but it has something to do with the diary pages we find lying around. Number 4. Fleshworms is the third game in the Tales from the Outer Zone series, the first two being Cyborg Seppuku and the Goat Crone. The game begins with us snoozing in our spaceship when we get rudely awakened. Ah, an ad for Mech Legs. Woken from our slumber, we have a most important decision to make. Do we choose the shit coffee, the shittier coffee, or the one that actually tastes like shit? I think I'll just have tea instead. In any case, our spaceship malfunctions and we crash land somewhere in the outer zone. Now we're really in deep shit and have to figure out how to turn the power back on, which has some handy instructions if you can understand them. You'll notice that our character likes to use the word shit a lot, my favorite line being, "Why'd I land in this shithole of worms?" Well, I guess it's better than a wormhole of shit. Sounds like something the AVGN would say. I got stuck trying to get the spaceship door open, but developer Malte Burup was very helpful with giving hints. It was totally worth it, as the ending of this game is the shit. Spoiler alert! Holy shit, our legs! Let's give this worm some shit. Number 3. And now, from the wacky minds behind the adventure think tank comes...
Brexit Man in Airport Land! The re-Brexiting!
This title screen reminds me of Captain Disaster. The story here is that the British referendum to leave the European Union is at a stalemate, and the fate of the nation now rests on you to travel to the UK and make the deciding vote in one final election. Brexit Man is voiced by the Space Quest historian.
Really?
Despite being based on politics, this game really doesn't take itself too seriously. In order to board our flight to the UK, we must collect various parts of a tongue twister around the airport by talking to people such as the convenience store clerk.
How long are you open?
Forever.
And the artist known as Projectile Elk.
Who are you?
I am the renowned provocateur, the artist known as Projectile Elk.
Projectile Elk is voiced by Ikifu, named after a very special method of kung fu.
It says here that, inspired by monkeys, the combatants fling their feces at their opponents as a means to confuse and disgust them before punching them down with traditional kung fu moves. They call it... Ikifu.
I spent half the time trying to describe Projectile Elk's painting, which as far as I can tell is done through much trial and error. Once we've collected all the tongue twisters, we can finally put them together.
Jean-Michel Shaw's chivalrous cavalry with blind, bloody butts carried peculiar precarious jewelry while rigidly resisting rigorous romancing Romanians with rickets.
I couldn't have said that better myself. Now we can catch our flight, but before we leave the airport, there's one more place we can go. A place beyond the boundaries of existence.
Who are you?
I am a character who was cut from the game. I am in tremendous pain.
That's lovely.
Do you know how much it hurts being cut? It feels like having your eyes gouged out and fingers poking into your empty, still bleeding sockets.
I'm just gonna go catch my flight. Cheerio! Our final choice is whether to fly to the UK as we're supposed to, or bugger off to California. Of course, as a loyal British citizen, we must do our duty.
I have arrived with a sandwich. Now let's go vote.
Number 2. The Darkest Tree is developed by Marco Giorgini, whose entry in last year's jam was Child of the Hill House, which ranked number 4 in my top 10. Well, there's no hanging bodies this time, but I found The Darkest Tree to be a very compelling psychological horror. The game opens in the present where it looks like we've been captured, before it flashes back to 14 hours earlier. How did we get into such a predicament? Let's find out, shall we? Yes, let's. The story is that our car is broken down and we're forced to stay in Albero Nero, a remote village inhabited mostly by old men. A lot of the puzzles involve the good old distraction technique, for example pushing over these candles in the church or waiting for the mechanic to answer the phone. The game is fairly difficult and took me a good 2 hours to finish. There's a save feature and I love it that when you load a game, your character actually says game loaded. He also follows which direction the cursor's pointing, which can provide endless entertainment. From talking to people, you get the feeling that there's something not quite right about Albero Nero, and they keep banging on about a festival that's going on at sunset, where everyone drinks the juice. In the churchyard, we can see the Darkest Tree itself standing like a black guardian over the village. The surrounding woods are haunted by terrible cries, which can only be endured by wearing a tinfoil hat to drown out the noise. It's a good thing I still have these from my Dark Side Detective review. So, as long as you wear your tinfoil hat, the government will never find you. Before we get to my number 1 pick, here are a couple games that didn't quite make the list. Another Heaven is developed by Akril, whose entry last year was kinda goss. This isn't a continuation of that story, however, but it's reminiscent of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. You have the option to turn off nudity or turn it on to see man and woman in their full uncensored glory. there's a veritable Noah's Ark of animals here, some more friendly than others. The real question is, what is this place and what are we doing here? A secret which we can only discover by getting past this giant elephant bird. Romanesco is more of an RPG than an adventure game and involves some basic combat. It reminds me a lot of the Midgar slums in Final Fantasy VII. At the fast food place, or is that fart food, you can purchase their famous human meat BBQ. Or if you're not a cannibal, you can save your coins for something else. The objective here is to find the password to enter the underground arcade, which I can only guess at.
Number 1.
My number 1 game in last year's jam was SpyQuest Mission Spectrum. Well, developer Stephen Don has once again claimed the top spot with his latest entry, Escape from Dimension. As the name suggests, we're stuck in a place called the Dimension, and we must figure out how to escape from it. What's that glowing book that just fell off the shelf? Let's just put that back, shall we?
Welcome to my mansion, counselor.
Okay, so the book just talked to us. Nothing unusual here. Now we have to somehow escape from this room. It takes all our pixel hunting skill to notice that the model of the house in the middle has indentations on both sides. If we place one of these blocks we find on either side, the doors open into another room, which changes depending on which block you place next to the house. So here we are in the up or down block. Among the collection of macabre paintings here, there's one that looks out of place. In fact, this is the same painting hanging in the Spectrum HQ office in SpyQuest. Every time you return to the central room, the book keeps falling to the floor and talking to you, giving you some idea of what's going on and why we're here.
You knew he was guilty.
He is not coming out anytime soon.
From what I can gather, we're a trial lawyer who let a guilty man go free, and now we're in some kind of personal hell. The key to our escape is manipulating the blocks we find in different ways. For example, the growth block can make things larger, as we can see from these giant Lego blocks. And there's a slot in the top where we can insert items from outside, so that when we go back in, they've grown in size. To go into much more detail would give the whole game away, but it's an incredibly well-crafted and thought-provoking game that does so much with just a handful of screens. The atmosphere and sound design are extremely creepy, with glimpses of skulls or fire flashing up on the screen, and blood-curdling screams in the background. Well, that's it for Adventure Jam 2019. What was your favourite game, Potu?
I like the game with the singing puppets.
Oh, you mean I Fair Lady. That was last year.
Can we hear the puppet song again?
Oh, okay.
There's a magic inside of me. It comes out through my hands, through the power of puppetry. I can make your heart expand when I put my hand inside, my friend. You know the fun will never end.
Barka baka doof doof. Ruffy woofy arf. Groo roo. Ruffy yap. Whoopee.